How fragile is human society? One global power outage can turn the world upside down. First there's a work stoppage and a school stoppage. Workers and students are happy, but a few days later, supermarkets are sold out. Water plants can't pump water, so the city is shut down. Everyone's homes were left like this. All they could eat was spoiled food. Dishes littered the kitchen in disarray. Toilets in homes that can't be flushed. The stench of a family gathering to defecate, trying to go out to the toilet. Public toilets are so stinky you can't even get in. What would humans do without electricity? This family of 4 has been living in Tokyo. They have been staying at home since the power went out. When they find out that an old man living alone in his home is starving to death, the father decided to go back to the countryside. Each packed their own bags and food and set off. They were more than 1,300 kilometers from the countryside. They wanted to ride their bikes to the airport to catch a plane, but the plane was grounded too. Dad is glad he bought a bike when the power went out. He had bought a bike for $2,000 cash so that he could take his wife with him. On the way they found that money was now the big problem. Someone was selling mineral water at a stall. They were selling bottles for $100 a pop. Dad shouted, "I'm not going to make you any money." But at the next convenience store, the mineral water is already selling for $150, and the next one was selling it for $200. That's when Mom stepped forward. Using her bargaining skills, she buys the owner's entire bottle of mineral water for $40. This saved a fortune. The family ate red beans and rice balls and canned food on the roadside. The daughter threw the red beans out, a bit disgusted. She didn't know that in a few days, they'd be so hungry they'd want to eat weeds. That's when they noticed someone had started setting up a tent by the park pond, fishing for ornamental fish for dinner, and drying the fish into wax, stocking up on food for themselves. At night they managed to find a hotel. The price went up to $1,000 per person. The next day Mom and Dad looked everywhere for a bike. Finally they saw a florist with bicycle. Second week of global power outages. People are already giving up their money. There's nothing the rich can do. In a rice shop, someone traded a snapper for a little rice. The next rich man took off his expensive hand in exchange for rice, but was turned down. The rich man again took a set of car keys out of his pocket, only to be thrown out by the owner's wife. She said, "I don't want luxury." The noble women outside the door, with their expensive bags, coats, paintings, porcelain, they all left in embarrassment. And then my parents came into the shop. They asked the owner for her bike. They brought out a bottle of mineral water and 2 bottles of wine. Finally they got a bike and a bag of rice. The family rode their bikes onto the highway. They were amazed by what they saw. The highway was full of people fleeing from the city. They had to walk slowly and wearily, dragging their suitcases with them. They were much happier on their bicycles. In the evening, the family couldn't find a hotel open. Resting on the grass next to them, another family humbly asks for a bottle of water. They are sympathetic because their own survival was important. They turned them down and quietly covered the water with their clothes. Late at night, the family slept under a tarp. The son woke up from the cold, suddenly saw someone stealing their water. The thief turned around and ran away. The son chased after him. He found out that the man had stolen the water to make milk powder for the baby. The son's heart softened. He put down the stick and left quietly. The next day, the family came to a tunnel. There were blind grannies sitting at the entrance of the tunnel, offering to take people through the tunnel for a fee. The family sneered. They rode their bikes into the tunnel, but it was too dark inside. If you're not careful, you'll hit a parked car. They had to make a deal with a blind old lady to get out of the tunnel. After a few more days, the family found a small stream. Finally they could wash their clothes. The father finished his last bottle of water and it wasn't enough. He ran to the stream and prepared to drink from it. The family advised him not to drink. He didn't listen and said, "You are too careful." Soon after, the sky was stormy. The family had to take shelter under the bridge, for bicycles were blown over by the wind. At that moment, Dad suddenly got up. He quickly ran to the grass and took off his trousers. He had a stomachache from drinking from the stream. When the rain stopped, they found a lot of damage. The notebook was broken. Matches were wet. The bicycle tires were broken. Their clothes were dirty. Even more desperate was the fact that all the rice they had exchanged had fallen to the ground. Now there was nothing left to eat. Dad fainted. Mom looks after Dad, who is weak. The son and daughter went to the supermarket. The food cupboard was empty. The bike's outer tire was gone. The matches were gone too. The 2 men changed their minds. The boy found strong glue. The girl found lots of tins of cat food. The boy found a bunch of battery water. This water was ready for drinking. Then the boy found his parents, throws away his mobile phone, left the plastic phone case, cutting open the case to fix a tire on his bike. The son started to grow up slowly, riding for over 30 days. They finally made it to the next city, but the rumors were false. There was no electricity here either. That's when family conflict erupts. The daughter accuses her father of making a hasty decision. This time the father feels he was wrong too. By this time, the family had run out of cat food. When they didn't know what to do, suddenly they saw an aquarium that was giving out food to cat. Global power outage day 53. Aquarium turns into a seafood stall. Staff bring out piles of fish to the hungry people. Big fish are grilled. Crabs are cooked. Families rush to line up until late in the evening. When it was their turn, the seafood was finished. When Dad suddenly fell to his knees, he begged them for more seafood, but there was nothing more to be done. Day 77 of the power outage. The family is exhausted, dirty, smelly, dark-skinned, and most of all, they are thirsty and hungry. They are sitting on the edge of a field. Dad is about to catch a worm. He was about to eat it. Suddenly, he heard a pig's cry, and there was a live pig. The family quickly ran towards the pig, but the pig was faster and stronger than the men. The 4 of them had a very difficult time chasing it, but in the end the pig somehow ended up by the lake. At this point, they burst out laughing. Finally, They can eat the meat. But the challenge had only just begun. Although there was a pig, but they didn't know how to do it, when a grandfather suddenly shouted and cut them off. Then he came down to bleed the pigs. It turned out that the grandfather was the owner of a nearby farm. The pig had run away from his village. The family thought there was no meat left to eat, but the grandfather brought them home. First he generously gave them water from the well. The family rushed over to fetch water. They gulped it down. Then he gave them a meal. When the family saw this, they didn't care to talk. They gobbled it up. The grandfather even took out smoked pork and gave it to them. They ate it with their hands. They had no regard for their image. The daughter was crying as she ate. It turns out that satisfaction often comes with tears. He decided to take the family in, but they had to help with the work. The family is very grateful. At night they make a fire and boil water. At last they could bathe in comfort. The next day they helped the grandfather catch the pigs because the electric fence had failed. All the pigs had escaped. They worked very hard to get all the pigs back. The family sat in the pig pen in a mess, laughing happily. It was a joy they had never felt in the city. Work can make people happy. During this time, they learned that the grandfather was a widow and orphan. His son had settled in America. He was always looking forward to their return. Unfortunately, there has been no contact. The family was very sympathetic. Feeling that this is what old people expect and worry about, they decided it was better to return to the countryside. So they said goodbye to the old man. He gave them a lot of food. They felt a bit guilty, but he said, "I wanted to thank you for your company." Then they stood by the house and watched them leave. The family moved on with determination. There were many more scares along the way. In a swiftly flowing river, they lost their father and their bike. In the jungle, the dog steals all the food, but in the end, they are saved by a steam train. The surviving father uses a flare his son bought for him to save himself. Eventually they make it to the island. They found their relatives on the beach. They ran towards the old man in excitement. The family was finally reunited. 3 years have passed. Father and son have learned to fish. The mother has learned to grow vegetables. The daughter learns to spin. Life without electricity. Everyone has a smile on their face. That very night, suddenly the electricity came on. The village horn blares. The streetlights came on one by one. Everyone saw the sight. No joy, just a bit of a trance.